should be all set. You can go.
Okay, so we'll begin our meeting with the first item on the agenda, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. She said she's trying to join the meeting, so
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. It's not
Okay.
working. All right, let me go to my email. I'll be right back.
we'll give it just a half a minute. Any changes, additions, deletions to the agenda?
Under departments, of course, we talked, Chief Hildreth and Superintendent Hall will not be here today. Did they leave you with anything? He said he had nothing to the meeting
You
tonight.
wanted to talk to Mike. You didn't want to say anything. But don't say it. Okay. Okay, Paul. Get me in trouble.
Right, so we can contact check number 14. Sorry, that
The total amount is $676, $417.11. Of that, there's $476,481.63 is payable from New York State Retirement for the annual retirement for both police and not police, for both fire and in regular employee retirement services. So that's the biggest portion of that. And also a lease purchase payment for it's actually a final payment for one of the it's for a DPW truck in here.
moved. Second. Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
That's important. Are you gonna put that in the minutes? 400. So I noticed that.
Yes, I
Thank
will
you.
do
Will you
that.
put that in there? Because that's
Yeah.
another one of the fixed costs like you and I talked. about.
Right.
We don't have any choice.
Okay, so
I need to abstain because I didn't get a chance to look at it. That's all.
Yeah.
Your vote, Mike.
To the abstract?
Yeah.
I vote for acceptance. I'm James on now. Are you on, James?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I heard one.
No, Oh, I mean. Jane, did you have a chance to look at the abstract?
Before tonight, or you mean, I'm sorry.
No, we just are taking a vote on the abstract. if
Okay.
you-
Yeah.
if you're paying it or not, that's all.
No, I'm comfortable. I support.
Okay, thank you. So I don't know how much you've heard or not heard, but the departments, the DPW and the fire are not here, nor did they have anything. But I did want to say on behalf of the DPW, first of all, to thank them from the village, myself and the village board for their work in snow plowing and the continuation of clearing things. I did get a message today from a resident who was particularly thanking them for what they do for clearing the roads and especially the sidewalks, because this person is a walker, and what they've done in the Canal Landing area, park area, to keep that clear this winter. So I want to mention that. And also to mention that they were able to clean a portion of the pond on the Franklin Street side more recently, so it was open for skating. I'm not sure of where it is today. After it had some winter weather, but anyway, we finally were able to get thick enough ice according to the requirements of the village to clear the pond. And so they were able to do that. So I thank them for their efforts in doing that also.
We got one glitch. Lights.
Lights. So we'll look at the lights then for the
I
evening.
was going to say something to Bobby.
Okay,
If he's here. He's got.
My experience is the pond is very skatable. There's some good sections on it that are open and had a lot of fun with a few small kids on the pond already, so.
good. Okay, so moving on, because we do not have other department reports.
Can I Did you skip over minutes? Approved
Oh, I
minutes?
did. Yeah, sorry.
And that should be for 113. If anyone's looking at the agenda, it's 113:25, not 121.
I move to accept the minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Has to see it.
Thank you. Thanks. I had it marked up here for some reason. Okay, so we do not have other department reports to have, and we were asked to add to the agenda. A member from the Senior Center Board is here to discuss the possibility of a grant application, so I would invite Arlene forward. And
Forget the name. Yeah, I can hear what it says.
oh, your name, can you just give Laura your name for the records?
Arlene Pritzker. Pritzker. I'm on the board of the senior center.
Thank you.
So you can speak from there if you speak up, or you can step forward and talk to us, or whatever you'd like to do. Did you have other things for the board? You're welcome to share that with us this time.
Just also, Sarah's here for the town board. To give you a grant. Sarah's from the town board also, right here. This is Sarah. She's on the town council. So that might be somebody want to talk to.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
Hi.
Thank you.
That's all right.
Thank you. My name is Arlene Pritzker. I'm on the board at the senior center. We are looking for space to hold exercise classes. Currently, we don't have a lot of area, we don't have space for the exercise classes. And so what I'm requesting is that I be able to do a feasibility study on whether the porch can be changed into a 4-season room with heating, cooling, insulation, windows. I spoke with the mayor earlier today, and I was told that the cottage should be finished by the end of 2025. And I would like to apply for a grant after doing a feasibility study if it works out that way. So either the porch gets enclosed, or I would get a grant to add a heating, cooling, ceiling fans, insulation, and flooring to the cottage so that it could be used 4 seasons. So yeah, I'm basically asking, can I go ahead and start to get quotes and come back to you and tell you what they say? I'm not asking for any money from the city, from the village at all. It would all be covered by grants.
So questions that people might have. I've talked to Arlene on the phone a little bit about this and explained that we would need, obviously, there'll have to be like an architectural drawing for what is going to be done. You're kind of renovating basically an open porch into a room and into a usable type of room for 4 seasons. So an architect's drawing would be necessary. Obviously, you got to get some costs involved, which we talked about. It's a village-owned property. Even though the senior center is applying for the grant, it would be required to utilize prevailing wage rates, because we ran into that with the memory garden. So we know that that's part of this, and I talked to Arlene about that type of thing. So I guess what she's here for, if I'm understanding all this correctly tonight, is any questions anybody might have about the feasibility of doing this, or if they have any positives or negatives for looking into it. And then the next step will be to look into some of the costs to see what that's going to be, and to see how it fits in with perhaps there is a grant that's coming up very shortly, I think the end of February. Whether this could all be accomplished in that length of time, or if that would have to be put into like another future type of grant opportunity. But I guess the general question is the village board comfortable with Arlene pursuing to get more information about the cost and the prognosis of how this would all work out, and then come back to us and get further approvals to go forward with this particular grant that may be in mind at the moment, or perhaps future grants that might work for something like that.
Yes.
In the meantime, your suggestions about the cottage, we didn't really talk about today, but that's something that we can discuss further or whatever, and see where, this is, I think, your first choice if you were to choose between the two things, and then see where this is, and then perhaps look at the other also or whatever. So Any discussion or
What
questions?
was your first choice?
Well, first choice is if the cottage is going to be completed by the end of 2025, is to go ahead and finish more of the cottage so that it's even more interesting to people to rent out for weddings and such, so there would be income there as well. Right, the understanding I have is that the outside will be enclosed, there will be a bathroom and a concrete floor, which doesn't make it very appealing for rental purposes, for events. So my first choice would be to finish out the cottage. Second choice would be to enclose the porch.
So Arlene, this is Jane on the screen. Can you guys hear me? Hi, Arlene. How are you? I love your idea of trying to look at opportunities to weatherize the cottage and maybe even put in a flooring for it to be used for exercise purposes. You and I have had discussions about the potential of using the cottage for exercise purposes, and my first reaction was it's a concrete floor that's not going to really be nice on people's knees and so forth. I don't know that we have to wait until what we're doing with the cottage is 100% complete before we look at other grant opportunities to further enhance the use of the cottage. So my only comment is let's not wait until the end of 2025. If your first choice is a cottage, let's get together and see where we are with it. We're currently looking at replacing and installing new windows, getting that done. And then, of course, we're going to update the electricity and the plumbing. While we're waiting on those steps to be undertaken, we could perhaps get together and look at the kind of grant monies we have, the agencies that we're using the monies from on the county level, and what agencies are you're looking at, funding agencies, for additional grant monies for this purpose. I think that's a great use. I'm sure the exercise classes are beneficial to all users of the senior center, so I don't have any issues with that type of activity. I do question the value of closing in the porch versus keeping it a porch, because I've understood it to be very valuable as a porch for the senior center. So I don't have a personal preference either way. I just would want to be very careful about just closing it off without considering its value as an open air porch.
Rarely gets used. When we have lunches and the weather is good, people will sit out there. That's the only time people usually sit out there.
Okay. Okay. I mean, that's good for us to know. Anyway, I'd be happy to work with you, coordinate on other ideas regarding the cottage.
Like that very much. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
I have one comment for you. I think it's wonderful. Thank you. The other part goes is make sure you take a look at New York State. New York State currently, the governor is proposing funding for community centers and also for physical activity for people in order to get out and be more active, so to be healthier in their communities as far as building the communities. That is part of what she has in the governor's budget for the legislature right now. I do not know where it's going to end up. I'll have a better idea when I get back next week from being in Albany. But it's the kind of thing that will allow an opportunity, and I'm not sure the timing of the programs or anything else and what's going to really cover. But so far, it sounds very broad reaching, which would include on a couple counts what you're trying to do.
Sounds good.
I'm going to say that because it's not, by the way, it's not easy to ever hook this money down, but they're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of $360 million. But New York State's a big state, so there's a lot of places for that to go.
Worth a shot. Thank you for the information.
Okay, and if I find anything out, I'll be happy to help you.
Thank you.
Get that to you.
What's this, dealing community development funds? We buy that?
If we
Are
want,
we buy that for the year, community development?
no, we still have the grant from the community development to do it for the purpose that we put in for the grant to,
For the cottage, but they're not going to continue to give us money for the cottage, mostly.
No, I know, but the porch, we decide to go that route.
Right.
Yeah, but we've got two different animals here at the same time.
Well, yeah, I know.
I guess,
You know,
right, I guess from what I'm hearing is, probably the best thing for you to do is to set up a meeting with Jane. And then to discuss your ideas for both things. And then kind of go forward. As far as going forward with figuring out what the costs might be. Or what the bigger plan is, and that's, I talked to you about this earlier today too. The village obviously has funded a lot of things at the senior center. We're currently faced with the idea that we're gonna have to replace the boiler or the heating system in Purnell, which is gonna be a costly thing. So we don't have a lot of money to put, if any money to put towards one of these things, which I know you understand and you're not asking for that. I'm just reiterating it for the rest of the board because they didn't hear our conversation. And so therefore, I don't think that any of us are opposed to like some of the ideas that you're presenting or proposing. If you want to take your time and efforts to pursue some of those ideas about things, I would probably have the conversation with Jane first to kind of prioritize what those things are. Our conversation also included earlier a conversation that I've had with Jane, Trustee Rice, about the senior center in general and coming up with maybe like a long-term plan as to what it is the needs are, the functionality and the needs of the building itself are, the organization of the senior center, and how we all blend that together with grant opportunities, perhaps village funding, perhaps senior center fundraising and funding, how we can make all that work. So I don't hear anybody on this board discouraging the idea of looking into things. I think that probably for your own benefit to kind of streamline some things or to make it a little easier for you is to have a conversation with Trustee Rice about, where the thoughts are and what makes the most sense to pursue. And then kind of go in that direction. Once you know some of those things, you're welcome to come back and share it with us, or Trustee Rice will. And we'll be able to, we can help you in other ways outside of perhaps financial aids or whatever to accommodate what you want to do there. And also look at the big picture of what's best for what you're trying to accomplish.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for coming out tonight and sharing that with us. Okay, next on the agenda, we have a resident request, and Malcolm Bender is here. He sent us a note the other day, dumped it off here at the village. Everybody got a copy of it. And it has to do with the senior center property, again, that we were just discussing. And I do have copies of a survey. I think I gave it to most everybody, or you've looked at the survey. But on the senior center property, which fronts onto Genesee Street, there is a small 32-foot strip of land behind the senior center property that extends from the property to Oakwood Street in the village. And Malcolm's letter here, or information that he gave us, is asking us to consider opening a walkway through that strip of property. So I don't know if you have anything else beyond that to tell us, or if that's the gist of it, or.
Always talk on about other pieces and parts of that. I would kind of like to, because not, maybe everybody's done this, I just would read this into the record. So
You can give it to Lori if you want to read it, you're welcome to.
I wrote it, I know how to read.
No, I know that. I mean, I can be in the record whether you read it or not. If you want to read it for the people.
I just
listening, or
just sort of set the
Okay.
tone for
That's
what I'm
fine.
talking about.
Okay,
And if you can question me if you got any thoughts on what I said. Public good, says the public good is defined as a public ownership. Good for everyone, goods or services that are available to everyone in a society and paid for collectively, often by taxes. Senior Center was purchased from a private tax paying owner in 1980 by the village of Fayetteville. The center is a textbook perfect example of a public good. Many improvements have been made and are continuing with hundreds of thousands of mostly taxpayer dollars to enhance and maintain the entire site. The grounds make a wonderful place to enjoy the outdoors with sidewalks on East Genesee Street, on the East Genesee Street side of the center for pedestrians to enter. However, very few pedestrians enter this full motor vehicle facility. Trees, green space, sometimes white space, a memorial garden, vegetable and flower gardens, historic structures, all enhance this public parcel. Plenty of activity has taken place at the senior center over many years. The senior center property has frontage on East Genesee Street and the rarely understood 39 feet of frontage on Oakwood Street across from Ledyard Ave. Oakwood Street at the Ledyard Ave connection has sidewalks. A pleasant walk into the senior center property now from this location affords a very pleasant, easy, safe way to enter this very special public property. Walking in this way, one is always on village-owned property. By entering this way, one can enjoy a quiet, nice place to view the barns, the cottage, the memorial gardens, nature, and parkland, and then the senior center building on East Genesee Street. Given this information, I ask the Village of Fayetteville to formally recognize the existence of the Oakwood Street connection to the senior center as a future sidewalk connection point. With this sidewalk, the village would be more walkable and people will discover the senior center. Walking is a well-recognized positive social, emotional, and physical activity for all ages. Please remember, you will be improving the public good, which is what you agreed to do under your oath of office and the U.S. Constitution. Thank you.
Okay, so for the record, the survey that we have shows that the width of the property is 32.74 feet. I'm not arguing with, I'm just saying,
That's good.
if you want in the record, that's what the record shows or whatever. The board can speak for themselves, but there's some concerns about when or how we would do this. So first of all, the Oakwood Street does not have a sidewalk on the side of the street that the senior center is on. There's a utility pole on that site. So there's some issues on that side of the property. Another issue that I have, and the board again can speak for themselves, but I have spoken to the board about this, is that we would potentially create a walkway from a street where there is no sidewalk to a property where the sidewalk would empty out into a parking lot. So there is no sidewalk from there. The village already has sidewalks paid for, maintained, plowed, and repaired that lead to that property safely. So not involving any traffic on a village street and not involving any traffic within the senior center itself. I feel that a pathway, whatever the pathway is, given that location, comes in behind the barn that's currently on the senior center. And we experienced some mischievous activities through the village last year with destruction of our flower pots that we put on the main street, where public is by there all the time and views it. So I see a problem with encouraging perhaps mischievous activities behind a barn that is not visible to the public or any type of activities that might go on there. Actually, in talking with Arlene today, she made me aware that one of the doors to the cottage is open and there are some beer cans in there. So there is already some mischievous activities going on in the cottage itself. And so I will talk to the DPW about making sure that that is a little bit more secure so that we can do that. And then lastly, the senior center property, although it is owned by the village, it is not designated as park space. It's not parklands. The senior center property is designated for use as the senior center, the community garden, the memory garden. And so although it is village owned property, it is not necessarily village property for just everybody to do whatever they want to do on that property. We can set limitations and have designated that property as far as what its use is currently. We are looking at our zoning and at our property uses and things in the village right now under a grant through Onondaga County and another grant that is forthcoming. And so that property's use may change a little bit as time goes by in what we do there. So until we know a little bit more securely what is going to be happening on that property, I'm not in favor of adding this type of a walkway or accessibility to this particular property, given the fact that there's plenty of village owned and cared for and safe ways for people to access this property if they are supposed to be on that property. And in relation to the long range plan and use for the property, the next proposed uses may not include keeping the property in question. That may be something that we decide would be better not owned by the village. And that's nothing that we're deciding right now or even in the near future, but that's always a possibility as to how we look at this. So I understand your concerns and your points of doing this. We will keep this under consideration for the future to see just how this all plays out and develops and see what the good of the people is or whatever regarding this particular piece of property and the good for the village and the liabilities of the village involved in creating such a walkway based upon those reasons that I gave you above.
Yes, a couple of things. When you first talked, you talked about something about the effect there isn't a walkway somewhere thereabouts. You said, to walk in this way, you talked about sidewalk being on the other side of the street.
Well, the sidewalk on Oakwood Street is on the other side of the street.
Yeah, so you have to put a little hatchway. And
Right,
and
and
you might
we
have
were
put-
just here talking about crosswalks at the last
Yeah.
meeting and know how safe and unsafe they can be and are with people. And again, once you get into the senior center property from Oakwood Street, even if you were to put that in, you put the people into a parking lot. The facility and the property is designated as use as the senior center. You have senior drivers. Now you're putting perhaps kids on bikes in there, people walking in there, kids on skateboards in there, and people that are trying to utilize the senior center that we have for them to drive around those obstacles and or have somebody run out in front of them or something like that. It's not safe. You don't have a sidewalk that dumps onto a parking lot. You don't have a sidewalk that dumps into area that's not safe for people to walk. And there's plenty of safe areas. They can walk Huntley, they can walk Redfield, and they can walk Genesee Street. And there's a sidewalk from Genesee Street into the senior center property without walking in the driveway of the senior center. That's existing already for people to utilize and we maintain and own and take care of for them.
Okay, a couple of things I would ask anybody that hears this, please go to the site and walk exactly where I'm talking about, walk the whole thing, because if you look, I like at the Oakland Street entrance, opposite Ledger Ave, there's a trail right across there. People have been walking in and out of there regularly in the last couple of weeks since this letter went out. And what you do, you walk down and you're looking at a door on the back of the single story part of the barn. And you walk to that and you'll walk around that and around the cottage. Now, it's curious, if you come at this site the other way from Genesee Street and you drive in, which almost everybody enters in a motor vehicle, on the left side, there are two little posts just past where it says it talks about the senior center campus, the sign there. It's a senior center campus. Just past the campus sign on your left, two posts and a brick walk and park benches. And that's where everybody is walking. And they're walking in the existing walk. So your statement, there isn't a walk. There is, it's there. You just have never discovered it. You never walked on it, obviously.
So it's walking from a parking lot into a place. It's not connecting two places with a sidewalk.
Wait a minute, it's.
I'm walking from the parking lot into the memory garden on a sidewalk, Memorial Garden, on a sidewalk. I'm not walking through to another street. I'm not encouraging people to walk from other people.
I have an engineering mind. Give me where you're starting. If you start, let's say at the,
You're telling me that as I come in the senior center driveway, on the
Right.
left, there's the sign that says it's the George C. Wortley campus or whatever it shows
That's
there.
that.
Just
And the
past
picnic
that,
table is there.
right, then there's the sidewalk that walks into the Memorial Garden,
Exactly.
Memory Garden, correct?
Exactly. Yes,
And where does that sidewalk go when you walk into that garden?
it takes you through the Memorial Garden and it takes you ultimately to the, around the east side of the cottage.
Correct, no, it goes into the garden and stays in the garden. It does not leave
Yeah, well,
anywhere, is
Go
what I'm
back there
telling you.
and follow the footprints. Go right now, we have a huge.
It's not a
advantage.
sidewalk where the footprints are.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly, you're right.
I'm telling
There
you
is
that,
no
right, so
sidewalk.
that's right.
That is my proposal, to make a sidewalk where there's an existing.
We're
set of
not making a
footprints.
sidewalk that enters into a parking lot and goes to a street as a thoroughfare.
Well, you're engineering, you're not using good engineering.
Malcolm,
Okay.
here's the other part that goes along with this.
Pardon?
We're basically putting this in this, we're basically saving place on it because You may be right.
I.
You may,
It's not.
let me finish my comment. You may be right, you may be wrong. I may be right, I may be wrong. I have no problem with that. What I'm looking for is I'm not going to give you a definitive, no, we're not going to do this. What I'm doing is we don't want to do it now. We want to see what the purpose is.
Yes.
We want to look at what's going on with the purpose. We don't want to assign it a task because that could limit us in what we're trying to do. The other part is I've sat here and I've sat into many planning board meetings, et cetera, where people have talked about the two things that come to mind for me. The housing that was proposed in that particular area of the senior center. And also about, the cottages and their purposes and what they're doing. And there are two things that came up, and one, we did talk about this pathway many times in those conversations. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but I am. And the other parts that I run into is I had in a position where many people in the neighborhood do not want that open at this point. That's the other thing that I do know. And I know some people do, don't get me wrong. And some people want to take the path to be able to go drink in the cottage. That's the other thing that we're finding. And I'm not saying that we're going to say this is done forever. All I'm saying is right at the moment, we want to see where we are down the road. And I don't want to assign it something so that I limit myself as far as what I can do.
Well,
I think you understand that too. That's very engineering too, by
I
the way.
realize there's a movement to fill that whole site with as many housing options as possible, and this might get in the way of the housing opportunity. That, I think it's.
Until, like
To look at the safety of sidewalks.
what I tried to say and what I did say was this, what Mark just reiterated for me. Is that until we know what is happening on that property, we will keep this under consideration, but we're not going to make a move on it at the moment. And I don't believe that the objective of this board or any board has been to completely fill that property with residential types of uses outside of what's currently there. That's all up for discussion and something that has not been brought, it was brought to the table when we looked at the apartments is this a viable option to the village? It wasn't at the time. Could that come back to us again? Perhaps, but it's not at the moment. And we're not going to do something to encourage things that are not safe for the public at this particular juncture until we have a better plan in place for the whole property.
Another bit of safety, you seem to be very concerned about safety. I again encourage anybody to walk the proposed site. It's all obvious fracture in the snow. It's got a signature on it. It's walk through the snow that you can walk there easily right now, today, tomorrow, anytime. And also walk in to the senior center on the sidewalks from Genesee Street. You either walk a driveway and compete with automobiles, which is what is going to happen, or there is a little sidewalk that runs to the front of the original structure. It winds around to the side of the structure to often a big pile of ice on the side porch and dead ends it in a snow pile. In other words, that site is not served well with sidewalks right now. Go walk. I think you need to walk it. And the village has owned it for 40 years and they've made no sidewalk improvements whatsoever ever on the property. And so to sit there and say, we're going to kick the can down the road and wait is just an answer.
Kicking the can down the road, if you
We've done
think
for 40
that's a
years.
better thing, well, I would much rather look at that particular sidewalk than what you're proposing on the back of the property.
What's it?
The one from Genesee Street, that's more accessible to everyone in the village, not just the people that live behind the senior
I
center.
did the numbers. If you have to walk in, if a senior wants to walk in from any of the neighborhood beside and behind that,
Mhm.
okay. Right now, if the sidewalk I'm proposing was in there, 24 people would. They're on the first block of Huntley and Redfield. Those 24 houses would walk the same way in the front of the building in Genesee Street. The other 168 other houses in that whole neighborhood would walk a shorter distance. Okay, so you got 168 people have a shorter walk to the senior center from that neighborhood. And 24 that would.
And
still
right
come in the
now,
front.
that property is designated as a senior center. So how many people in those 124 houses are seniors that utilize the senior center?
Gaining every day they get a
How
day
many
over and it's
people-
getting to be
How
more.
many people are seniors that utilize the senior center in that
It's up to
neighborhood?
You, And
Right, and that's what we'll look
at.
into. We will look into different aspects of this. That's what I'm trying to tell you, but you're not trying to listen.
But to use the excuse that it's a safety thing is an excuse.
It is a
I
safety
recognize
thing.
it.
It is a safety thing,
It's an
Malcolm.
excuse.
So, okay, you can have your opinion and I can
It's a
have mine.
fact.
This
As an
was,
engineering
Okay.
person, it's a
this,
fact.
this was proposed before. You
We've
remember
looked
when-
at it different times.
You remember when it was proposed before? And there was some objection, especially from the people on Oakwood. There's adjacent, there would be two adjacent homes.
Yes,
So I just want you to know that that's
Oh.
what was proposed.
okay, and you are all working under oath, and under your oath of office, you're required to support the Constitution of the United States. And under the Constitution, all public property is available to everyone.
Can you speak to that,
can't
Ted?
say,
Because-
say, well, guess what? These 8 people can deny all the members of the public from using that property.
You've got a hell of a job with the courts on that one. because- I'm sorry, Malcolm.
Okay,
But she,
Mary lives in the neighborhood. Do you have a comment, Mary?
It's a huge safety issue for people walking from Oakwood. Down behind that barn, it's isolated. Somebody trips and falls, there's no cars, no people walking by there to recognize that someone is falling. So it's a huge safety issue. With the way, you know, if you're bringing them into the barn, there is nobody. All these sidewalks here, there's people driving, walking by, but someone walking down that sidewalk trips when they get closer to the barn, no one's gonna see them. Nobody, nobody's back there.
Thank you. All right, so thank you for your comments. As we mentioned, we will keep them under consideration. And we appreciate your time in coming to us and explaining your position on this particular subject.
We will keep that seriously. I mean that,
And I will
Malcolm,
take
because I,
anybody for a walk and show them what I'm talking. I'll walk the whole distance. I'll lay money out. You'll never walk there. You never have. So you can't be really well informed to get me walk there.
Here, what's the history of that? Does anybody know why that piece of land is there? That would be another
I know why.
issue. I mean, is it because
probably built homes in
there's
that
power
area.
lines that go down, there's a power pole at the end of it that supplies
Right.
power to the barn.
right,
Does it Niagara Mohawk or someone need access to there? Is that part of the reason? I don't know.
My guess is it's the survey of the property itself. You know,
Pardon me?
that's just the original survey, the original parcel was cut up that way.
And
And
probably the houses behind it, it's
Yeah.
just an assumption, was part of those properties were part of the original property and then got sold off. I knew someone that lived on Oakwood and she and her husband came here from Schenectady a lot of years ago and bought a lot of vacant property on those streets up there and then sold them off over time and had their own house built there. So I'm assuming that it was in the process of selling off lots, they wanted to keep access to perhaps a back street, whoever individual owned that property at one point in time. But we will keep it under consideration. We will look at what the uses of those properties are. And again, it is not designated a parkland. It is designated for senior center use, for the community garden, for the future use of what we allow for the cottages use, for the barns that are on there that are rented out to people. And we will continue to, we know that that property exists. We will consider it when we look at the rest of the use of that property. But as for now, that's where it's going to stand. The next on the agenda is the North Burdick Street resolution. So we had a piece of property on North Burdick Street. It is the last piece of property in the village of Fayetteville on the east side of Burdick Street. And back in 2018, we were approached by the owner of the property to rezone that property for commercial business use, traditional business. It was rezoned to back in 2018. That passed this village board, so it was rezoned. And there were some limitations and conditions put on that rezoning that have now expired. And so substantial development of that property hasn't taken place. So we have a resolution before the board to revert the zoning from traditional business back to R2, which is a residential. And Ted can speak to anything else different than that you think we should say.
Yeah,
before we do.
you're basically rescinding the previous resolution that authorized the local law that authorized the zone change for failure of the applicant to satisfy conditions required.
So I'll read the resolution. Whereas the Village Board of Trustees of the Village of Fayetteville has previously adopted local law number 3 of the year 2018 to change the zoning classification of tax map parcel number 07-01-19-0 from R2 residential to TB traditional business. And whereas local law number 3 of 2018 was premised on the development of the tax parcel into a commercial facility that would provide retail services. And whereas local law number 3 of 2018 included conditions for the development of the parcel, including timelines for site plan approval and commencement of development. And whereas as a result of a number of factors outside the control of the property owner or the village, development of the property has not taken place and the owner has not been able to satisfy the conditions of local law 3 of 2018 for the zone change approval. And whereas in light of existing circumstances, including the current social and economic conditions impacting the development of the property, as well as the scope and nature of other development proposals for properties in the vicinity of tax map parcel number 07-01-19-0, the Board of Trustees has determined it is appropriate to have the property revert to its previous R2 zoning classification. Now therefore, the Board of Trustees hereby resolves as follows. Local Law 3 of the year 2018 is hereby rescinded to the effect that the 2018 zone change from R2 to TB classification is annulled and tax map parcel number 07-01-19-0 has reverted to zoning classification R2 under chapter 187 of the Village of Fayetteville zoning code.
Any questions?
What's that?
Is it okay to ask questions about it? Not a public hearing.
At the moment,
Well, first let's get a motion and
so moved.
so moved.
Second.
Second,
Okay, James on there. You have a question, you have a question, you can ask a question.
Thank you. So my question is, the property's been improved to some extent.
Yes,
And I presume the owner was trying to sell it, so I don't, if a buyer is now found to do the retail thing, they have to come back and ask for the zone change again.
correct. And the developer, the owner of the property has approached the village about some different plans there
Mhm.
perhaps. And so therefore, he might want a different zone classification. But I don't know until he comes.
But whatever he
back to
comes
us.
back with, he would have to ask for zoning change. again.
Correct, unless he fits something within the R2 description of what the property is available for. And he might do that too, because there is some opportunity there for things that he's talked about, which are not formal and not formalized yet as far as any kind of an application or even a cursory review of the planning board at this point, but there's some variables to what he thinks he might want to do on that particular property.
Obviously,
Right. There's nothing to say that the village board wouldn't re-entertain this.
Mhm.
The way this particular law was written, as I just said, had certain parameters written within it that haven't been met. And so the best thing is to kind of
over.
restate it and then have him come back to us if he
with
wants.
whatever
something
his.
different.
Need a public.
Okay, any other questions from anybody on?
Mike, I'd like to also add that the village is currently reviewing its zoning code with the idea of updating its zoning districts. And this particular site is being looked at along with every other site in the village. So I think it's particularly important to rescind this back to its original zoning district. And everything that the mayor just said, if the current owner finds another project opportunity, he can come forth with what he has to propose. In the meantime, we're all going to work hard with our updated zoning code. And we don't want to preclude development. We just want to make sure it's done in the right way for the village.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The excess still park is off of Sims.
Hmm?
The excess to our land is off Sims.
Is that Sims? Yeah.
I don't think it's off, her.
Oh. Sorry. I don't know, you have to look at it.
I'm going
Through the
down.
back of the park too.
I'm going down. I think it's off Sims.
That's
Next on our agenda is policy review, and I just put this on the agenda because last year in March, when the election was held, we moved the voters of the village of Fayetteville voted to move our elections from March to November at the general election time. And then more recently, the village board voted to I don't know how to say that correctly, like our annual year to coordinate with that election. We voted to move our annual year to January 1st. So in the process of an annual meeting, which has traditionally been held in April after the March elections, any of those appointments, just for public information, any of those appointments that were made last year in April carry through until December of 2025, until our next annual meeting, which won't be April, which is a year, it will be a few months later in the 1st of January, first meeting in January of 2026. In the process of that annual meeting, it asks for the village to acknowledge that we have reviewed and or updated if necessary, and only if necessary, any of the mandatory policies that the village has. So although we're not going to be doing that for April this year, like we would have maybe previous years, over the next several months, we will be distributing different policies at different times for everybody to read. And then we can look at them to see if there's any necessary updates. And just a review doesn't mean that there has to be updates or changes to the policies. They just have to be reviewed to make sure that they are still what we want the policy to be. So that's just kind of FYI for future coming up.
May
Okay.
I ask a question?
Yes.
So I find myself at a loss for knowing what all our policies are. Even the ones that were the mandatory ones, and I can get those from Lori, I know, but I also don't know what I don't know. In terms of how many other policies we have. So there's the mandatory and the recommended, and then what we might have on our own. And I don't know that we have any kind of collected.
There's not a
Notebook.
policy library.
Right.
Excuse me?
There's not a policy library, if you will. of what-
Right.
Yeah, we do have mandatory ones all together.
And
But
we
for
have-
instance, like our ice clearing policy, you know, what. That, I don't even know that we have that here. I'm not sure. It's at the
Right.
Public Works, so.
So I think that's part of the conversation is to determine what are the most important ones? Are we clear on which are policies and which are procedures, which, you know, ice clearing sounds
Yes.
almost like a procedure tool. So
Right.
this is a project that I expressed interest in the past and I'm still very interested in.
Okay. Well, definitely, we gotta look at the mandatory ones. And we will look into some of the other ones to see where they fall in the order of maybe priority, we might say.
Yes.
As far as being a policy or protocol or something like that. Maybe that's not necessarily, maybe it's listed as a policy, but it's not really a policy. It's more of a protocol or a rule.
Very glad we're
doing
doing
that.
this, so it's good news.
All right, just wanted to let everybody know what was going on with that. All right. So today you found in your boxes our reports of expense and revenue as of 12/31/24. So that's for your review. I have this for our budget items. And then also tonight you received our what we're gonna call our draft tentative budget. So
This
go
has
ahead.
never been done, so I just actually was able to put first draft tentative in today's date. Then when we do the next one, it was brought up. So that we're not confused, so we know what draft we're working with. When we come up with a new one, there'll be a second one. And that was a great suggestion. Trustee Clary, you already have one.
Yep.
can do it, so yeah, they work.
Yeah.
Great.
Because there's a lot of papers floating around this time of year.
Yes, tonight.
Yeah, tonight.
So this is the first draft of the tentative budget that Lori and I put together. And this is for the trustees to review. It's not shared or available to the public because this is going to be our working document, which is the responsibility of the trustees and the mayor to work with the department heads in formulating what the final budget is going to be. So anyone that is liaison to any of the departments is welcome to talk to those departments. And to understand a little bit more about those requests that they might have in the budget or where the changes might be and how that might work. I've set below that next on this list, a budget workshop schedule. These are dates in March and very early in April. If anybody has conflicts, then I will need to know sooner than later so that we can maybe make some adjustments. But tentatively, once we have these decided upon and everybody is clear with their schedules and available for these dates, we're planning on a budget workshop on March 18th at 9 o'clock in the morning to meet with the fire department. We're scheduling a March 24th at 5 o'clock, which is before our regularly scheduled village meeting here, Village of Trustees meeting at 6 o'clock to review codes, the clerk, the judge. We're scheduled for March 26th at 9 a.m. with the DPW. And I have to confirm with those two departments, they may flip-flop if there's conflicts with those departments. And then on April 2nd at 9 a.m. to review revenues and a general review of what we've been talking about and what we've been doing. We could schedule one more meeting if it is only if it's necessary on April 7th, but that is basically our very last available time to make any initial changes to this budget. And then we have to publish it for the public hearing, which will take place on April 14th. So after April 7th, the budget will be available to the public on the website, or if they want to come here and get a copy of it. And that draft preliminary budget will be a public hearing on the 14th. And we do have the availability to perhaps make any little changes or something if we want to from that point. But we must adopt the budget no later than our April 28th meeting, right?
Actually, let's be adopted by May 1st.
Or by May 1st, but we don't meet
Yeah,
until
don't
then.
meet
So
yet.
we'd have to have a special meeting if we meet outside or don't adopt it by our April 28th. So that's why I put the April 28th date on here. Some general information, budget workshops will not be live streamed, recorded, or minutes taken. The public is welcome to attend any of the discussions. However, no public comment will be entertained during the workshops. These are very candid conversations between department heads and the village board, which require the board's undivided attention. Discussions at these workshops lead to the draft preliminary budget, and it's very important to understand what the department's needs are, where they're coming from with what they're asking for us, and how we are going to get to their final budget. On the back side of the paper, you will see that there's basically 4 different categories of expenditures within our village budget. So there's fixed costs such as payroll, so any salary and benefits, property and liability insurance that we have to have no matter what the costs are, and we shop for those at times. The departments, just for your information and the public's information, the departments were asked to increase any employee's pay by either the terms of their contracts or by 3% if they're non-contractual types of employees. Capital improvement expenditures. So departments were asked to have a 0% increase in their capital improvement expenditures. So this is such examples would be like equipment, vehicles, apparatus, building items. So we've talked about the need for replacing our heating system here. We just talked about our need to replace the heating system at the senior center. So more longer term capital types of improvements within the village. And then the cost of services. So again, the costs that the departments have in providing the services to the public. So You know, for example, in the DPW, there's salt and there's personal equipment and there's, you know, tools and things like that. The same with the fire, the same in the courts, the codes, the clerk's office, parks, celebrations, things of that nature that we provide to the.
I'd like to see that you change that. Departments were asked to have a 5% in cost of services. I'd like to see that say max of 5%.
Well, we're gonna talk about it. That's what we asked them in their proposed budget sheets that they gave to us.
They've already had them, they stayed under that. In most areas, some of them actually had to go over, they were zero maybe here, but something utility cost, fuel costs, salt costs, things like that, that again. They've just gone higher, so. I mean, typically, the board of trustees have never set the parameters for increases. So you can decrease it accordingly to, in the budget, as you look at it, or increase it.
Yeah, I probably what I still like what I said.
No,
Okay. Well, we have time. That's what budget workshops are for, is to review all of this and see what the numbers are that people put in for their departments and why they're in there, and some of the costs are what the costs are. Everybody that pays any bills for yourself knows the costs go up, and some occasionally go down, but not too many of them. So that's what we have to look at with the departments when we go through these things. And then other types of contractual expenses that we have as a village. So we do provide money for the senior center operations, for the museums, Manlius Historical Society and the Gage Museum, and the recreation, zero increases in those areas also. So that's kind of an overview of how we will be looking at things and what we will be looking at things. You have this budget, which shows what was budgeted, what's been expended to this date, what the new budget proposal is, the percent changes on here. So if there's quite a few pages, so I would encourage everybody to take some time and kind of start looking through it. And then we will delve into the nitty-gritty of what the numbers mean when we meet with each of the departments. We will have their worksheets available to us to make sure that we know where everything is coming from. Okay,
Mike,
yes.
I have a couple questions. When do we as a board talk about things that we think besides departments are necessary expenditures?
Well, I guess we can do it at any of the workshops or whatever. I don't know what you're thinking about. Is it, do you have an example like of something or not right now off the top of your head? That's
I'd
fine
rather
if you
not say
don't.
it at the top of my head, but you know, I would imagine many of us have thoughts coming into the process. So for me, it would be helpful to hear other people's thoughts in some way, and to share mine. And if they're not really, you know, worthy of the public meeting, there's some reason where I don't understand something, I'm asking just where we might have that conversation, that, you know, it's the departments, but we also have the comprehensive plan. And one of the things that I learned at a recent workshop is that the comprehensive plan should also be a significant part of our considerations in budgeting. If we want to select something, some strategy out of the comprehensive plan, that might not necessarily bubble up from a department.
Mhm.
So any guidance on that, or I'll figure it out?
No, we certainly can talk about it. I had talked to a Parks Commission member yesterday who is looking at the comprehensive plan as far as how it affects the Parks Commission as an example. We will be looking at the comprehensive plan and see what some of those recommendations are also. And at one of these budget meetings, we can, or hearing, or, you know, workshops, I should say, not meetings. At one of the budget workshops, we could discuss something like that or whatever.
Mike, I have a thought on that. I think it might be a behoove of each trustee to understand and to know the comprehensive plan as it's written, as they come to every single working session, because there may be recommendations that pertain and fall within the category of the DPW. And, you know, we should know that.
Right.
I don't think we should wait until like the end of everything and say, you know, I really think we should do X, Y, and Z. I think it is upon us individually to read the plan, understand the plan, and bring it to every single discussion we have. It doesn't mean we have to over engage in the plan, but you know, it's a guiding document for all of us.
Actually, the action items that were in the comprehensive plan actually spotlight the different areas and the different departments as far as what you're trying to do
Yep.
also, as you're well aware of. And so that is a key component as far as putting it together and having worked on it. I understand that. And looking at it as the comprehensive plan as a guide, it's not the concrete walls. They're a little bit soft at times, but they are in fact the guide to try to keep us on task. But we have to be aware of what we're doing in comparison to. And I agree with that.
So
I think
we-
James is right.
Right, we do have approximately a month out before we're starting to meet about this, you know, maybe a little over a month. We got February, which is a short month, and then a little bit of March, so we should be able to have an opportunity to look at that and to start putting some ideas together about those things. If you have any specific ideas that you come up with, you're welcome to share them with me so that I can start reviewing them and seeing where we can fit those into the budget with on things.
Because
So we do-
I think that's important, because they make, your ideas may already fit into areas that you're like, oh, okay, we can do this over here, or this is what.
This may be an extension of something that's already planned to be done
Correct.
to do more of something to
Mhm.
accommodate that.
Yeah, and I think to your point is you know, there is quite a bit of time if you obviously talk to the mayor, but I didn't have any questions or ask or whatever. This is, can be just looking at it, it's just like, okay, it's like, whatever, what is this? It's just like a whole lot of numbers. I'm not, where do they originate? How do we get them? I get that. I don't expect anybody to really pick that up and say, oh yeah, great, that looks like a good number. What makes up that number? What, you know,
Right. that's
what
we'll
is it? What do we
discuss
need to
at,
take out? What could we do? You know, so.
Yeah.
So that's why you have a long time in between this tonight getting it and then the workshop to be able to understand.
To look at
Some
those things
are
that
just
you're
gonna
asking.
be- That is what it is.
Right.
Like the fixed cost items.
Right.
But you still ask the question, well, still ask the question, just even if it's a fixed cost, I mean, what's the order, you know, what is it, why is it so high, so low? You know, do we need?
And where do we-
Tax, can't we just not? What-
Not for the
I-
social security reason.
I have a comment and another question. My comment is that this is really great work. So I want to thank you, Lori, because I believe this is a little bit different than how it's been done in previous years. And I want to thank the mayor for laying out such a clear process that we all can know what's going to happen and what. There's a lot of great content in this document that you gave to us tonight. My question is to Ted. Hi, Ted. I attended 4 NICOM trainings in December, and one of them was on the open meetings law. And it was very explicitly stated that when the public body of the Board of Trustees gathers, that there needs to be a public record of that in some way. And I understand that minutes are not really conducive to a budgetary discussion. My hope and what I had recommended was that we would have them live streamed so other village residents could see what the conversation is about as well. So from a point of view of transparency and communication with our public, we would have that available to them. So is what I heard at NICOM incorrect in terms of budget workshops specifically being, specifically, I asked the question specifically, and this includes budget workshops, and Wade Bartolome said, yes, it does.
Yeah, they're subject to the open meetings law. The minutes. There's a whole path we can go down on what's required of the minutes. Most importantly, it's minutes are required when action is taken.
So it doesn't apply as well.
So it's not is definitively required for a committee where presumably no particular action is going to be taken other than trying to narrow issues.
All right, the budgeting process is a task and a responsibility of this board. And although perhaps someone could watch a live stream, things can be misunderstood and or taken apart, and miscommunications can lead from things like that. I've talked to other village municipalities who do not live stream, who do not take minutes, who do not have these workshops recorded. I've spoke to other board members on this board who preferred not to take that approach and do that. They can speak for themselves if they'd like to, and that's where the decision came from about this. They're very, as I mentioned in here, we have very candid conversations between the department head and the village board and the clerk. And anyone is welcome to attend the meetings, but they're not invited to participate in the meetings and or participate in discussion at the meetings. It's really a task of the village board to put this budget together. And then it is presented to the public and they have every opportunity to question us at a public hearing and ask us to explain where we came from to get a particular number or a particular thing.
Ted, did you, the part about the live stream, could you address that? You talked about the minutes, but in terms of open meetings law,
Yeah, live,
we don't have to do
live
anything?
streaming is not mandatory.
It's not
Yeah,
mandatory.
that's kind of a policy decision that this board will make,
Okay,
regarding how it wants to operate.
Having it open to the public meets the requirement of the open meeting law.
For me,
I said, having public invited and allowing the public to attend.
Yeah.
Meets the open meeting law.
They're not
Correct.
closed door sessions. Anybody's
No.
welcome to come here and attend and sit here and listen to what
Yeah.
the discussion is.
Yeah.
But
That's
they're-
what we record. The door's gotta be open. There's gotta be a place
Right.
for somebody to sit. So that they can. Not
So-
participate in the meeting, but be there to observe, correct, if they take their own set of.
There's
so
nothing.
there's nothing to preclude, was that what you were gonna say? There's nothing to preclude, and a decision was made. That we would not do them, even though I had expressed that I thought that that was important, so. Perhaps we need to take a motion and vote on this.
Yeah, I'd be happy to add a comment here. I understand the concern to ensure that the board has full transparency with the public with respect to the budget and how it is decided upon, because it directly has an impact on taxes, it has some kind of impact on the public, whether it's a financial impact or whether it's actually a resource impact. And I take that very seriously, but I also recognize that the board has a very serious responsibility of fashioning the budget. These working sessions are exactly that. Everybody's hard at work in these working sessions. We come in, we ask the detailed questions, and it is it's a fluid session. It's a free flow of ideas, comments, concerns, issues, opportunities, all of the above with each individual department. I think that the board meets its open meetings law requirement by inviting anyone and everyone to come to the meeting if they want to listen and to hear what transpires in these meetings. That's not the end of the process. That's just the beginning. We go through there's a lot of them here. It's like all of March. We're going to be working very hard. And I'd like us to stay concentrated and focused in these meetings because it's hard and it's a lot of material to understand, and we have to do our own homework when we come into these meetings. We don't just come in and say, okay, help me do my job. No, we got to come in prepared to do our jobs as is. Once we do all that, then every single one of us should be very well prepared to understand why the budget is what it is and why we are proposing a particular budget to the community. We open this discussion now up to the community. Now we're ready to have cogent conversations with everybody and anybody at that time. Right? So this transparent and openness is continuous throughout our entire budget session. We historically started live streaming of our board meetings, I don't know, what, a year, 2 years ago, something like that. I love the idea of live streaming for these meetings, but I don't see that it's advantageous to either the public or the board when it comes down to working sessions. That's my opinion. They're hard. You got to roll up your sleeves. You've got to go through some details. You have to reach some kind of understanding of the process and all of the data in front of you, but you're not taking action. We are not making final decisions in those working sessions. We make those final decisions later on when the public is attending and has every kind of opportunity to participate with us. So that's my perspective.
In
And
conjunction with that, Jane, you have working sessions where you are discussing certain things that at the next working session may change. And if somebody doesn't follow every single one, every single moment, then miscommunication will be portrayed to the public, and being transparent and clear and will become a misleading effect to the public is
could
is
be, it could be
other
very misunderstood. Yeah. Yeah.
That there will be potential for misgivings and misinformation to be portrayed if they hear one particular meeting and a discussion about one item that maybe we come back to. Just because we have these meetings scheduled with fire DPW, it doesn't mean that that may be the end of the discussion. That may be something that we need them to get back to us with different information at another budget workshop meeting. If somebody doesn't hear all the information, then misinformation goes out there and it's very untransparent as far as what the final results are. And it's just a way to, this is really the village board's responsibility. One of the things that we were elected to do for the residents of this village is providing these services and departments that we have to budget for, and we have to hold. We obviously hold them accountable, they hold us accountable, and the taxpayers hold everyone accountable, so.
I did not say that it wasn't hard. And I did not say it was not the responsibility of the board.
I
What
didn't
I was
say
talking,
that.
excuse me,
But-
what I was talking about had to do with making it available to the public. So we have 4 meetings set and a 5th possible. 4 out of the 5 are at 9 a.m., which is not a great time for many people to attend. So I would like the record to show that I did not participate in the decision to not live stream. I raised my concerns and I remain concerned.
So
So I mean, I have no problem taking a motion tonight. That decision.
If you want to live stream, then we can do that.
So
If you want the motion, you're welcome to do so.
people can't come to the meetings, but they could live stream? Is that what I just got from what you said?
I don't know how you got that from what I said, but, you know. I would like to make a motion that all budget workshops be live streamed in the 2025 budget process. Is there a second? Which is why I didn't make a motion.
But you are now part of the, I mean, your decision is clearly not aligned with my decision, but you're still made a decision. You're part of the decision. So it's important that.
I'm referring to as the decision that was presented here tonight, despite the fact that there have been conversations that I've been a participant in about this topic.
Right,
So-
and because of yours and my conversation, I had conversation with the remaining board members and asked them the same questions that you and I discussed.
I did ask for, I'm just gonna leave it.
That's fine. Okay. Board reports, Dan, do you have anything?
Well, yeah, I do. I was just gonna say, DPW, thank you for their work on the pond. I was excited, the kids are excited. There's a lot of good things. I got one issue I'll talk to Bob about. That's it. As far as the rest of the things go, it's difficult. I've noticed the white truck is back, which made me very happy. I want it clearly understood that the only reason I voted for this type of trash system was because I was told by our ex-superintendent, our new superintendent, the ex-mayor, and other people on the board that it was a safety issue. So right now, every time that white truck is not in use, the safety issue still exists. Once again, I was not in favor of it. I only voted that way because, well, probably if we look in the minutes, because of the issue of safety that was given. So it's bothering me still.
Thank you. Mark?
Actually, today's actually a monumental day in the history of the world that we should think about a little bit. Today is Holocaust Memorial Day. Both my mother and father were members of the armed forces during World War II. My mother was an Army nurse and my father was a Marine. The conversation about the Holocaust was actually one that was had with myself and my sisters by our parents. This was one of the things that, from their point of view, was a great shame for the world. It's just an absolute fiasco as far as the world is concerned and for just people in general. And today is one of those things that make me think about it. Many of my friends in school, their parents had survived. That's why they were there, because their parents survived. They're one of few, many times in their parents. So it's the kind of thing for me that's very emotional. It's very strong to understand what goes on and understanding our history. And to understand our history is the only way I know that we can avoid repeating our history. And so I ask everyone to do the same and to think about those people who did not make it and those survivors who put up with absolute hell. There's no other way to put it. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Trustee Casey?
Yes, I don't know if this has to be a motion, but I believe that, and I came into this meeting thinking this as well. As I had talked with you about, I do think that we should include in our newsletter what the timeline is for the workshops, and the time. And what the process is. So that's
Oh,
one thing.
can I
Do I need to
just-
move?
No, I mean,
Motion.
can I just respond to that or no?
Sure.
So I've asked if everybody can look at the dates and I'll get those to you, Jane. I didn't email them to you, but I'll get them to you. If anybody can look at the dates and see if those are all good and available so that we can all make sure that we're here for those. That's one of the more important things. And if they have to be adjusted, we can work on making that available for everybody. Once I have that clearly defined, then I will have Karen add that to the website also, so that people can look at those any point from this point going forward. And I will outline some of this so that in the newsletter, so that people understand what the process is, when the meetings are, and how they can have input at the public hearing, whether they're present for the public hearing or if they have written comments for the public hearing. But just like any other type of public hearing that we have or whatever. So
Thanks.
So
Mike.
yes, I
I
will do
think
that.
that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Just a brief update on the tree inventory. The ball is in our court. We provided them with cartograph data, but not GIS data. And then they're searching, and I've asked Karen, Bobby, and Lori to see if we have any reports on previous tree inventory, because they've requested that of us. So we're kind of holding them up a little bit from working on the CFMP. So I imagine we'll be able to get that straightened out in the next couple of days.
Oh, good.
Um,
And they're finished with the inventory, the additional that we
the
asked them to do,
oh,
or
yes, I'm sorry.
that part of it? I just didn't know. If we were.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yes, they inventoried an additional 96 trees. So our street inventory will be complete.
Nice, thank you.
And that is comprehensive plan item, so that's a great thing. I'd like to also speak to the comprehensive plan. I tried to study it, and I am proposing that we have an implementation update from 2023 to 2025 provided in mid-April, and I volunteered to coordinate that. We have 24 pages of implementation steps, 7 goals, 82 strategies. It's a little hard to keep I think it's a little hard for any of us to keep a handle on the depth of that, especially considering we have the reconnaissance level historic resources survey, a parks master plan, climate action plan, we're doing a zoning update, we're doing the design guidelines update, we're gonna have a community forest management plan. We have a sidewalk improvement grant that has not yet been planned. And there's one SMTC, one Syracuse Metropolitan Transportation Council report that we have, one that will be getting to us any day, I think, and perhaps another. So in terms of looking at our plans as a small group of people, I think some like bird's eye view on some of this is important because we have invested so much in the plan. Tracking the implementation is a critical part of that to show our citizens that when they do this, we don't let things just go on a shelf and get dusty, which is the common experience of many people in relation to plans. So I don't know if anyone has any input on that, but that's what I'm thinking of doing.
Sure. Actually, you are correct. We have a lot going on.
Mhm.
If you could put that, how you propose that we try to work with that and one thing and put it into a concise document for me, I'd really appreciate it.
Perhaps we can have a conversation about
I'd be
it,
happy to have a
because
conversation.
I don't know the answers to it all. It's easier to
I don't
say.
know all the answers either, and I'm working on a multitude of those things and have worked on the comprehensive plan. I know we need our climate action plan redone, et cetera. There's a whole bunch of things that need to be done.
Partially, it's like, do we need to have a climate action plan redone if we have it in our comprehensive plan? Can some of these plans be retired? You know, that's another thing.
Exactly. But I think it really is at the board level to start really understanding this also.
It's a lot.
There's a lot there, but I think it's a board process that that's part of our responsibility to understand it without pushing it out outside necessarily for us to actually have good conversations. Less than 3 for open meetings, so we can actually have those real conversations. And I know you know how difficult it is, and I work with it all the time, making sure I don't talk to no more than one other town board member, a village board member at one time, so that I don't conflict with the open meeting law for our constituents. It's very important. It's one of the things I keep on talking to people about all the time. So I try to keep myself very well adept at what's going on there, and I think you understand that too. Because
Jane,
Go ahead. I apologize. I'll get out of your way.
No, I don't know if you were done or not.
I'm done now.
Okay, anything, Jane, or no?
No,
Okay.
no, I was just scratching my face. No, no,
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
cool.
All right, sounds like a
So,
plan. Then you two will start working on some
Yeah.
ideas first.
And I personally don't have a good copy of the plan. I have to tape it together when I'm working on it because the format is difficult. And I don't know that the public has access to a hard copy of the comprehensive plan. And I do think that if we're going, I'm going to request that one be ordered for me, but I would like to see one.
Who's on
ordered for the
network here?
public.
Isn't there one in the library? I think
I
that,
was saying, there's one at the library and there's one here.
Um,
I actually have one on my desk.
I would like one on my desk, because it is a little bit difficult to look at the implementation steps, side by side because of the 11:22 format. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Lori, Ted? Anybody else in the audience have anything? Jane, sorry.
no,
Okay.
the zoning committee is just working really hard on, just the initial stages of this work. So it's all of the work is just moving forward nicely.
Thank you. The other thing I have is that Mark and I attended a County Volunteer Fire Association meeting on Saturday, and they were discussing the future of fire service, fire departments and things in general. There was a gentleman there that spoke to us from Cortlandville. And then we also had a little presentation from the emergency management people about resources that are available to our community along with other communities for emergency types of situations and things. And it was fairly informative about both types of subjects. So we were able to take away a few ideas and a few things that we can continue to work on. And I'm sure our fire chief and our DPW superintendent are aware of the emergency management team and what they have available for use and borrowing during situations. But I'm going to suggest that they review that with them again because they have updated some of their equipment. They now have one central location out in Liverpool and all their equipment is in one spot. So it gets to the emergency sites much faster now. And they have a lot of resources that would be available to our community if there happens to be an emergency situation of some sort. Be it whatever it is, from a storm to a disaster or whatever, so.
We're actually, large events.
Right, large events, they have road blocking capability things and stuff like that, which we might be able to utilize, given some of the stuff that's happening around the world, around us or whatever, so. That's all I have. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah. Oh, I asked if anyone in public.
Oh, I wasn't sure.
Okay. Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Hi,
Thank you.
thank you, everybody. Have a good